Some Vikings were feared in life. Others were feared even more after death. And for a few, the ground was never allowed to claim them. In the Viking world, burial was not just tradition. It was permission to leave, to be remembered, to belong somewhere, finally. Most people were buried with care. A mound, a boat, a quiet place near family. But some bodies were left where they fell. No grave, no marker, no farewell. Not because they were forgotten, but because they were dangerous. The question is not who they were. The question is why the living were so afraid that they refused to bury the dead. The Vikings believed the dead did not always stay still. Death was not a clean ending. It was a crossing, and some crossed badly. If a person died with rage unresolved, with deep shame, or with broken honor, their spirit might not rest. It might linger. These were not monsters. They were people who had failed in ways the community could not forgive. A man who betrayed his own kin. A woman accused of drawing sickness toward the farm. A warrior who broke sacred oaths and laughed while doing it. When such a person died, the village faced a choice: bury them and risk their anger seeping back into the soil, or leave them unburied, exposed, watched, cut off from the land itself. In some places, bodies were dragged beyond the fields, left at the edge of forests, placed where no one would build, no children would play, no animals were welcome. The message was clear: you do not belong here, not alive, not dead. But fear did not end there. Because even an unburied body could cause trouble. Stories spread of livestock refusing to graze near certain remains, of dogs growling at empty air, of shadows appearing where no fire burned. So precautions were taken. Some corpses were pinned down with heavy stones. Others had limbs bent or restrained, not for punishment, but prevention. The living were not being cruel. They were being careful. There was a belief that burial gave the dead strength, a place to rise from, a connection to the land and the ancestors. To deny burial was to deny power, and yet this punishment was never used lightly, because denying burial was worse than death itself. A person without a grave had no place in memory, no mound to visit, no story told with pride. Children would grow up hearing warnings instead of names. Do not walk there. Do not speak of that one. Do not ask. In some cases, the fear came from how the person lived. Those who practiced forbidden magic. Those accused of twisting fate. Those blamed when illness came without reason. Whether the accusations were true mattered less than belief. Belief shaped reality, and belief said some people were better left outside the world of the living and the dead. But there was another reason some Vikings were never buried: punishment. Execution alone was not enough. For crimes that shattered trust, treason, oath-breaking, unforgivable betrayal, the body itself became a warning. Left visible, unclaimed, exposed to wind and birds. Not to humiliate the dead, but to remind the living what happens when the rules are broken. Burial was honor, and honor could be revoked. Imagine passing the same place every day, seeing what remains, knowing everyone knows. The silence around those bodies was louder than any speech, and still, fear remained. Because what if denial of burial did not weaken the dead, but angered them? What if the soul, rejected by earth and people, became something worse? Some villages eventually changed their minds. Bodies once left behind were later moved, reburied quietly, at night, without ceremony, not out of mercy, but out of fear that the punishment had gone too far. Because the Vikings understood something deeply unsettling. You could be right and still suffer consequences. To be unburied meant more than being forgotten. It meant being erased from the chain of belonging. No ancestors, no descendants who would speak your name, no place in the stories told by firelight. For the living, this was a powerful warning. Belong to the community, respect its laws, or be cut away completely. But it also reveals something fragile. A society that feared what happened when order broke, when rules failed, when anger outlived the body. The Vikings did not deny burial because they were cruel. They denied it because they believed some deaths did not end things. They believed the past could reach forward, that mistakes could follow you, even into silence. And perhaps that is the darkest part. Not the unburied body, but the idea that some actions were so heavy they could never be laid to rest. Most Viking graves are silent now, peaceful, still. But the places where no one was buried, those places were avoided for generations. Not because anyone remembered exactly why, but because something about them still felt wrong. And if even the memory of a person was dangerous enough to erase, what does that say about the things we choose never to lay to rest?